G'day, my little piggies. Welcome to, I'm a bit of an expert, a Peppa Pig podcast. I'm your host, Josh Chapman. And on the other end of the line from South Australia, happy Australia Day, Matt. Hello, Matt Frost.
G'day, Cobber. How are you going?
So it is Australia Day in Australia. I think this will drop the day after Australia Day, but it's a public holiday here. We get to have the day off. You get to have a barbecue or celebrate the way any day, any way you see fit. That's completely up to you, or not celebrate it at all. That's completely up to you. We're not here to talk about those things. We're here to talk about Peppa Pig. And on this occasion, we thought we would jump ahead of time because we love jumping ahead of time. And what have we got lined up, mate?
We've got Kylie Kangaroo.
Now, there is a longer Peppa Goes to Australia special, but it's quite long, and we think we'll bank it when we get a bit closer to it. But this is sort of like the genesis of the Peppa Goes to Australia episode. I'm just trying to think of a sort of a comparable. It's almost like the TV show that the film spins off of, or sort of something like that. But what goes down in Kylie Kangaroo, mate?
Well, I quite like this because a van rocks up at their house and out jumps a family of kangaroos that Mummy and Daddy Pig barely know. They met them at an airport.
Yeah. So let's just start with that. So they basically turn up completely unannounced, saying that we've run into you on holiday. I like to think that Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig, back in the day were, backpacking or something like that.
Yeah.
And they've run into this couple, at the airport, or they've, at the pub. They've just gone in for a couple of quick drinks or something early before they've gone to catch their flight. And they've met a nice Australian couple, got chatting. And, of course, as you do, you say, oh, well, if you're ever in the area, pop on down and say g'day. And
they have.
In typical Australians, schlepping around the UK, which you and I both were.
Yep.
I don't know. Did you ever doss on someone's couch? I never knew what that term dossing was until I moved to the UK.
I dossed under some stairs like Harry Potter for a while.
Really?
In house, yeah. Just before I came back home, my lease had come up, but I still had sort of 6 weeks to go. So I just
so it wasn't sort of the first thing you did when you got there, kind of thing, though.
Sorry.
It wasn't the first thing you did when you arrived in the UK.
No.
You always had a little bit of, a little bit of contacts. It's all about having contacts.
Yeah.
Well, I lived in a share house with about 10 other people when I first moved to London. So there was always a couple of randos who were in there that you didn't really know where they'd come from, and that was a proper Australians in London house. 10 bedrooms I think it was, or 8 bedrooms in Shepherd's Bush, and walking distance to the walkabout, and
we're like rats, aren't we? Sort of infesting.
Yeah, well,
places,
the whole demographics completely changed in the UK with Australians now that they can work. We won't go into too much detail, but there used to be you couldn't work skilled, so you had to pull beers. And then when the European Union opened up, they needed all the unskilled jobs went to the Europeans, so they let the Australians, work their skilled jobs, and then everybody had money, and nobody wanted to go to the lousy Australian pub anymore and drink the lousy beers or have a snake bite. Do you ever have a snake bite, mate?
Oh, yeah. I actually drank snake bites long before I went to
Oh, really?
London. Yeah,
So enlighten us what's in a snake bite.
So snake bites, as we used to drink them, were half beer, half cider, and red cordial.
Yeah, that's exactly not that sophisticated.
No, but in the small town where I grew up, they were actually banned in the pub.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we collectively, I'm not singling myself out here, but I'm not saying I wasn't part of the problem either. Just probably a little bit hyperactive. So yeah.
Yeah, look, my first year in London was a very typical, stereotypical Australian. You go to the Australian bars and all that kind of stuff. I sort of grew out of it, but after that, but the first year I did see a lot of people with sort of red down the front of their shirts and things, where they'd either spilt a snake bite or worse. And yeah, so I'd like to think that Mr. and Mrs. Kangaroo were just dossing around England or, backpacking around, they run into Mummy and Daddy Pig, and now they've just turned up at the front door, and they've got Kylie Kangaroo with them. Now, can we assume that Kylie Kangaroo is named after Australia's Rose, Kylie Minogue?
I was thinking Kylie Mole, but yeah.
I'll Google that, everybody.
But yeah, look, I'd like to think so.
I'd like to. Yeah, I don't think there could be much doubt. Although, if kangaroos started with a different letter of the alphabet, obviously it's the Kylie Kangaroo. They like to keep that all nice and consistent. So, and she's there, and she's got a little brother Joey who's in the pouch, and there's quite a great little moment where the daddy kangaroo, and if he has his name, he basically sort of pulls an esky out.
He does, yeah, and slings Mummy and Daddy Pig a green can each. So
which looks like a Victoria bitter from where I'm sitting.
Very much, yeah.
But we're assured that it's lemonade.
Yeah. a shandy, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a bit of that. So they kind of basically just invite themselves in, make themselves at home, and then in typical Australian fashion, or stereotypically Australian fashion, they bust out the barbecue. Have you got one of those round barbecues at your place?
No, but I did have one. I have had one, and the old round Weber as well. I was talking to a good friend of mine last night who listens to us on Spotify.
There you go. He's contributing to those stats.
Yeah. And yeah, we decided that Australians, even though we do barbecue a lot, are probably the worst in the world at it, I would say.
I think we overcook everything a bit too much.
Oh, I don't think we quite treat it like the art it is.
Well, considering you have like Texas barbecue, which is like the greatest thing in the world, yeah, I think it's just more not really based around a special occasion. I think it's an everyday thing, so we're a little bit blasé about it.
Yeah, it's possibly right. I noticed that corn on the cob. That's so they didn't sort of take another stab at us and throw a shrimp on the barbie. So
no, well, yeah, vegetarians again. So no, not even the meat, but no shrimp on the barbie. I suppose if it had been an American show, they probably would have gone for the old shrimp on the barbie. So they chuck that in. They have the barbecue, and meanwhile, Peppa takes Kylie Kangaroo out to jump in muddy puddles. But of course, it's a sunny day. There are no muddy puddles. But as we discussed in the last episode, Peppa and George already have their boots on.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, Mr. Kangaroo, Mrs. Kangaroo also wearing boots. Kylie Kangaroo also wearing boots. Mummy and Daddy Pig not wearing boots.
Right. But they are quite near the house. So.
They are quite near the house. So that does pay off later. So they basically go, oh, there's no muddy puddles here. What can you do? And then Kylie Kangaroo shows how she can pretty much jump 10 feet vertically into the air. Yeah.
So Peppa's quite sweet here because George shows his little jump, and then Peppa says, I can jump a little bit bigger. I can jump quite high. And then, Kylie does her stunning vertical leap, which is, for all of you international listeners, is quite accurate for a kangaroo. They can leap very, very high.
I would have liked to have her special ability been boxing, where she just punched Pepper in the nose. She's going, I can't jump, but for a kangaroo, I can actually, because kangaroos certainly know how to put the fists up.
They do, particularly against drunk bogans. So then Rebecca Rabbit comes, and she's normally her and Richard sort of dominate all the jumping events, and so she's clearly outclassed by Kylie as well. But Kylie's getting a bit embarrassed by this point.
Yeah, so they actually play that quite well, where Peppa's kind of going, oh, show how you can jump, and she's a bit like, oh, well, I don't want to be a show off and things. So rather than her just going, hey, step aside and let's and watch the expert here, she does get a little bit sort of going, I don't want I want to show off my amazing jumping skills, but amazing jumping skills she has.
Yeah, and then a fan favourite, certainly one of my favourite rocks
Your
up.
boy?
Yeah, my boy Pedro. Nay, rocks up
On his the little space hopper.
on his super space hopper, I think.
Oh, was it?
I don't know whether he's sort of added the superlative himself, but yeah, I think it's his super space jumper. Or
Did you ever have one of those as a kid?
Yeah, we had them at school, but I don't think I had my own. Can't remember
No,
what
I think I knew someone who had one because I do remember jumping around on one, but we certainly didn't have one in the house.
Yeah,
There's no way my mum would let something that big and bulky bounce around inside the house.
yeah. I don't think like we probably, you know, me and my sisters probably would have turned them into sort of some sort of death match on them. I think so.
Jousting on space hoppers.
Jousting on space hoppers. Oh, can you remember what they were called here?
I was just about to say the same thing because they certainly
Yeah.
weren't called space hoppers in Australia. And now
No.
that we're doing the Australian episode, we should have done a little bit more research. But maybe someone will tell us on the old
Yeah.
Twitters and things, and we'll come back. But Pedro does kind of go, well, I'm the jumping expert on my space hopper, and he jumps about an inch off the ground.
He does. He jumps around about how high George jumped, I think. So, and then Kylie again reluctantly bounds about 8 feet in the air, and Pedro is very impressed, but he does like to point out that he probably could do a bit better, but he's a bit tired. So.
Yeah. Well, Pedro likes to. He's got to save face. He's got a reputation to uphold.
It does. You could, yeah. Has Pedro already broken a leg, or was that in?
Oh, I think we might be jumping ahead on that one. I don't seem to remember him breaking any legs yet.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a very special episode. We might have to wait for one of us to go to hospital and then jump ahead and do the. Yeah, if one of us breaks our leg, before we get to it, we can jump ahead to the Pedro breaking leg episode. Let's just hope that never happens.
Yeah. I'm not really super keen to be breaking things at this age.
I don't even want to break a sweat.
Oh God. I break a sweat just eating.
Yeah, well, I was today. So they Pedro does says he could have done that, and then of course the rain comes down. If you want to have a barbecue in Britain, you got to look out for the rain. Daddy Pig had called it. He said all you got to do is have a barbecue. Mr. Kangaroo busts out the umbrella, and the corn is ready anyway. So they all get to have some delicious corn. Now, at the 4:04 mark in here, they're all huddling under the umbrella. Mummy and Daddy Pig are wearing their shoes.
Right.
We cut forward a few seconds to the kids eating their corn, and then we cut back to the umbrella where everyone's having their corn. Mummy and Daddy Pig in their boots.
This is. Well,
Bootgate.
Yeah. I think that's more than enough time for them to duck inside and get their boots. I'm saying no plot hole.
No plot hole. All right. I'm gonna let it slide because it is a special. It's a special episode. We don't want to get caught up on the nitty gritties.
And it is the one rule that they always stick to. I think so. No boots, no play, no jump. So
well, that's right.
It's the thing about the barbecue when he says, Daddy Pig says, I'll just have a barbecue if you want it to rain. I remember getting a disposable barbecue from Tesco's once.
Oh, those ones that stink.
Yeah, with the
like
little
the chemicals they put in them.
Yeah, the coals and the charcoal and stuff like that. And we went out to Hyde Park and had a barbecue, and it did rain. So there's some
yeah,
truth
like
in
I used to
this.
live.
Yeah.
I lived next to a park in London called London Fields, which basically became hipster mecca by the time I left there. And on a sunny day, it would just be filled with all these hipsters who'd go to the off licenses with their beers and sit in the park, and there would just be all these little disposable barbecues, the sort of the white smoke bellowing off them, with their snags on there, and God, I think it was good to cook for about 10 minutes. You could get worth of cooking off it.
Yeah. I mean, they sort of fairly efficient because they use charcoal, I guess. But yeah, there's better solutions out there.
We might not be the best barbecuers, but the British are definitely worse than us.
Send your hate mail to Josh.
Yeah, if you want me on Twitter, come at me. That's okay. So nothing much else to remark on this. A good little episode. And of course, they go down the hill, and there's a big muddy puddle from the rain, and everybody gets in the puddle and starts having a jump around. And all of a sudden, the kangaroos can't jump more than an inch off the ground.
I think they're probably
bogged down in the mud.
I think they're probably just being respectful.
Well, that's true. If you hit the mud at that velocity and that height, you'd be covering everybody in mud as well.
Correct. Yeah, I think they're just much like like they've depicted Australians as being maybe a little bit forward in inviting themselves around and making themselves at home, but they've also shown the sort of the modest side. So I'd say that's true. I'd say we've been depicted pretty well.
And not to spoil the Pepper in Australia special, but the favourite is definitely returned when Peppa's family go to Australia, because as I recall, I think they just turn up at the front door unannounced as well. So there is a little bit of a little bit of poetic justice there. I don't know if that's what it is, but or they're just as inconsiderate as each other.
Or perhaps it's just the way that animals run. So
yeah, you just put up and too bad. All right, mate. Well, a good episode. Good fun one. And we always like to jump ahead and do the specials and things. And we thought, well, we do it. It's Australia Day here. We'll jump in. There's a little bit of Australian twinge on the old Kylie Kangaroo one. And it's not the last we'll see of them.
Nope.
I'll have to double check and see when the Pepper in Australia ones take place. I think at the rate we're going, it might be Australia Day again before we would get to it anyway. Yeah. So it might be in a year's time. We might jump ahead anyway and revisit, but we'll see how we go. But follow us on the socials at Peppa Pig Pod if you want to drop us a line, leave us a review, and thanks again, mate.
No worries, Josh, and good night, little piggies. Mate.
Yeah. We're playing a tune and we're singing a song with a bang and a bong and a bang. Bong, bang, boo, bing, bong, bing, bing, bong, bangly, bongly, boo. Bong, bing, boo, bing, bong, bing, bing, bong, bangly, bongly, boo.